How does the Jewish calendar work?
On the moon.
Okay? It works on the moon. We have 12 months a year. What, 13 months?
13.
Why do we have 13 months a year? What?
This year 13.
Oh, every once in a while we have 13 months. But I'm going to get to the reason behind that. But the fact is that the Jewish people, we count by the moon. Biblically, not only are we meant to have a calendar based on the lunar cycle, we're actually supposed to see the moon ourselves, and only after seeing the moon determine what the month is. Now, what would happen if every single Jew decides that he's going to be the one to determine when the Rosh Chodesh is? What do you think is going to happen? We're going to have 25 different opinions on when exactly the new month is, which means every day of the month and every holiday is going to be celebrated by different people at different times, and that would be chaos. That wouldn't work. It simply doesn't work that way. Okay? Now, what we are obligated to do is we're obligated to have what's called the Sanhedrin. You know what the Sanhedrin is? What's the Sanhedrin?
It's a Beis Din.
The Beis Din. The central Beis Din, there's supposed to be a rabbinic body that is the controlling body of Judaism, which unfortunately doesn't exist today. It probably should, but it doesn't. Okay? Yes, you could. It's just extremely complicated. In order to, you have to kind of get consent from every single rabbi in the world. It's complicated. Not so easy. Easier said than done. Okay? But the rabbis of the central Sanhedrin, they are meant to listen to witnesses. And listen carefully, because we're going to discuss this in the Talmud, is they need to hear witnesses. It's not even good enough for the Sanhedrin to see it with their own eyes.
Are they not witnesses though? It's like 6.
I don't care if that. We're going to learn about that. The people that determine when the new month happens cannot say we see it. They actually have to hear it from somebody that says they saw it. We're actually going to learn in the Gemara what happens if the people who see it are the Beis Din. We're going to learn about that. I don't know what you're talking about. What does that have to do with anything?
No, like the Beis Din, I know exactly what it is, but it's not good enough. You have to tell
Okay, there's a concept that there needs to be witnesses. There actually has to be people that see. They see the moon. And only after they see the moon, they have to go to the rabbis of the Sanhedrin, and they have to report their sight to the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin then investigate and cross-examine these particular people to see if they're telling the truth or if they're lying.
Would these witnesses make money?
Actually, it's a good question. They didn't get paid in money, but they did get fed. There was a fancy meal. We're going to learn about that also in the Talmud, that there was a fancy meal. They fed them, and everything's good. All right? They got a lot of good food in order to encourage people to come. You know, you offer Jews free food, and the place is packed. Right? Everywhere you go. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you, getting on my first tangent right off the bat, is that I was once in Australia, and I visited, we did a program making a shofar with children. In this particular place, it was a reform school, right? And we were making shofars with the children in the reform school. Before we made the shofar, I had this bit of a presentation, and I started talking to the children, and I started out by saying, who knows what's Chabad? And I expected everybody to raise their hand and say, we know what Chabad is. Not a single kid raised his hand. Not even one. Right? And I basically was stunned, because that was like part of my presentation. You know how you make a presentation, you're expecting everybody to laugh, and then no one laughs? You're like, what do I do now? That was kind of what happened to me. It is what happened to me. And as I kind of like stared at the kids, like in amazement, not one of you heard of Chabad, one of the kids raises his hand. And I said, okay, yeah, what do you have to say? He says, I know what Chabad is. I lived in California, and that's where we go to get free food. Right? So basically this kid was told by his parents that we're coming to shul to get free food. Right? Don't tell Chabad secrets. Shh. Before you know it, all the other synagogues are going to start serving free food, and Chabad's going to go out of business. Chas v'shalom. Right? Anyways, but it works. The witnesses got free food. Remember, we're talking about the witnesses that are going to report that they saw the moon. Okay? Now, once the witnesses report that they saw the moon, and the rabbis cross-examine him and determine that these witnesses seem to be telling the truth, what happens now? Then the Beis Din make an announcement. And what is their announcement? They go bang, bang, and they say, Mikudosh, Mikudosh. Once they say Mikudosh, Mikudosh, which means it is holy, then that day becomes Rosh Chodesh, and that is a holy day. We're going to discuss what happens if the rabbis cross-examine the witnesses, and the witnesses seem to be telling the truth, and the rabbis determine amongst themselves, they'll say, yeah, these guys they're the real deal. And then they stand up, and they're about to say Mekudesh, Mekudesh, and in runs that squeaky guy that always makes the problems for the rabbi. Rabbi, what about that? Yeah? So that squeaky guy comes running into the basin and says, listen, Shkia, the sun went down. Now once the sun went down, maybe it's the next day. Right? Now if the sun down and it's the next day, the rabbis didn't yet say Mikudosh, Mikudosh. Does that mean, but they planned on saying Mekudesh, Mekudesh, which means all the calculations worked out that the prior day should be Rosh Chodesh, but the only thing they missed was making the proclamation Mekudesh, Mekudesh. That's the only thing they missed. Right? The question is, when is Rosh Chodesh? Is it the day before, or is it the day after?
It depends.
Depends? Well, that's what our Mishnah is going to discuss. That's all I'm going to tell you for now, is that we need to know this. That again, there's witnesses, the witnesses are cross-examined, the Beis Din have to determine if they feel that these people are telling the truth, and then they need to make a proclamation called Mekudesh, Mekudesh, and only after they make the proclamation is Rosh Chodesh properly called.
So what happens if, like, on Rosh Hashanah, right? How would they do that? Where Rosh Hashanah is supposed to be holy, but they only found out today's Rosh Chodesh at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They're supposed to keep that.
Shmuel, are you listening to me? We're about to start learning about this, right? That's what we're starting. You want to know all the answers to all the questions before we start? Then what are we going to learn for the rest of the time?
How to actually learn it.
Right, well, let's start. We're dealing with the Mishnah. Ra'uhu Beis Din v'chol Yisrael. The Beis Din themselves and all the Jews saw the moon. It was like there. It was a clear sight of the moon. V'loi hispiku loimer mekudosh. And the Beis Din did not yet have the chance to make the proclamation mekudosh. Ad shechoshecha, until it got dark, which means until the sun went down. Harei zeh me'ubar. This is a pregnant. A pregnant? What's a pregnant? The answer is that the way the Gemara calls a longer month or a leap month is actually called a pregnant month. A month that is, there's only two options in Judaism. Okay, a lunar month could either be 29 or 30 days. It's one or the other. As a matter of fact, if the Muslims, I know lately I've been talking about the Muslims, I got in some trouble over here, but the Muslims also follow a lunar month. They follow the lunar month. However, I'm not exactly sure how they make their calculations, but their months as well have to be either 29 or 30 days. However, they don't have the leap year. We have a leap year, which, by the way, in Talmudic terminology is called a pregnant year. This past year was a pregnant year, which means we had 13 months. Because Judaism, we have to be able to catch up. We have to be able to come, the lunar month and the solar month have to unite. We cannot have the lunar month. The lunar month, if you make 12 lunar months, you lose approximately 11 days every year. And that's why in the Muslims, their Ramadan, which is their month that they fast the whole month, it could be extremely easy because sometimes it falls midwinter. By the way, slowly it's getting better for them because every few years, I think this year they were in Nisan. I think next year I think it's going to be in Adar. I don't remember exactly, but they're actually coming into winter, which means they have very short fasts. They only fast during the day. They don't fast during the night. right? But if you go to the summer, the summer's long days, right? But their year constantly moves because they only have 12 months a year, and it's the lunar month, which basically means that their months do not properly collaborate with the seasons. Okay? In Judaism, they both have to collaborate. We have to have months. We have to have lunar months that collaborate with the solar month, and that's why we have a very interesting calculation. If you want to know why Jews are so good at math, because we had very interesting calculations that had to be done specifically with our months. There was actually a group of Jews, there was a whole yeshiva of Jews in the time of the temple, that their job was to calculate when are the Jewish months. Why do they have to calculate if I just told you that they use the... If we use witnesses to see the moon, why do I need to calculate?
Leap year.
No. Well, leap years, yes. Leap years, they need to calculate because of the leap years. But why do they have to calculate?
Because they need to know when the holidays are.
Again, that's easy. What do you mean? The holidays in the 5th of the month, the 6th of the month?
But they need to know when the beginning of the month is.
Okay, so that goes by when the people see it. When the witnesses see the moon, then the Beis Din say that's when the month starts. They knew when a witness came in and said, I saw the moon, they would ask him questions. Where did you see the moon? How high is the moon? What's the angle of the moon, etc. Based on those questions, they knew if the guy was telling the truth or not. Why? Because if he said something wrong, we knew that he didn't see the moon, because we knew exactly where the moon was meant to be seen. Right? So that was a way. Put it this way: if a witness were to lie, he could actually lie, but he'd have to know exactly where the moon was, anyways. Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is a stupid question.
Why is it a stupid question if you have it?
It's how do you see? It starts at the new moon, right? How do you see the new moon? Is it terribly dark?
So the answer is that once a month, there's what's called a moonless night. A moonless night basically means that you don't see the moon during one night a month. However, the second it starts again, that's when Rosh Chodesh is. Meaning the second you start seeing it again, that's when it's Rosh Chodesh. Okay? So again, the word Chodesh, which we think is month, the word Chodesh actually comes from the word Chidush. Chidush means new. So why is a month called new? Is because it's the new moon. The new moon is the new month. Why in Judaism some months are 30 days and some months are 29 days? Right? And by the way, Jews, we celebrate the new month. We call it Rosh Chodesh on the 30th day, if there is a 30th day. Then we have 2 days of Rosh Chodesh instead of 1 day of Rosh Chodesh. Right? These are all great questions.
But if someone were to lie, would have to be able to calculate the month, calculate where the moon would be exactly. Then
Start again.
So the rabbis knew where the moon was going to be anyway. So what's the point of having witnesses if they knew where the moon was going to be anyway?
Because biblically we're told that we have to go by witnesses, we cannot go by calculation. Because God tells us to do some things and we don't always know why.
Why isn't the mitzvah calculate where the moon is going to be?
Because that's not what the mitzvah is. Why did God say not to eat pig?
Well, they say if you don't eat kosher, then it's hard to actually be able to tell. It's harder to be able to have a munah on Hashem. It's harder to be able to do.
Why? You know, God tells you things and you don't always know it. In Judaism, it's very important to know this, by the way. Not everything in Judaism we understand why. As a matter of fact, if you learn Kabbalistically, nothing in Judaism we know why. Even when God told us do not kill, we don't know why God told us do not kill. You might come up with your theory. Well, God knows if you're going to kill him, then he's going to kill you, and before you know it, there won't be any society. And that might be a good reason why not to kill. It could be a good reason. However, that's not the reason why we shouldn't kill. You know why we shouldn't kill?
God says not to kill.
Because Hashem told us in the Torah not to kill. Do we know why? No, we don't know why. But God told us, therefore we don't do it.
Well, it says first do, then we'll understand.
Correct. What does that mean?
Well, it means that there must be an understanding.
That means, okay, so it means that first of all, we're going to do it because God told us. Then we're going to try to figure out why God wants us to do this and that. And the reason for that is that the deeper we understand godliness, then the better we'll make other decisions that aren't so clear. Right? But that doesn't mean just because we understand a reason for listening to God, doesn't mean that that's the reason. Again, remember, there's a difference between a reason and the reason. Do you know the difference?
One's the principle.
One is the reason. That is why God told us to do that. We don't know why God told us to do that unless He tells us, which in most cases He didn't. Right? However, you could say this is a reason to do this, and it is important to learn it. It's important not just to listen to God. We said two things. We said nasa v'nishma. Nasa means we're going to do. Nishma means we're going to listen or we're going to try to understand. Right? Both are important. We're meant to try to understand as best as we could. That's what we're meant to do. But we have to realize that just because we don't understand it 100% doesn't mean that it's not understandable. Just because we think we know the reason for God's rule doesn't necessarily mean that that's the reason for God's rule. If the Beis Din failed to make the actual proclamation, even though they interviewed the witnesses, and even though they confirmed that the witnesses are, in fact, legitimate, nevertheless, until they actually make the proclamation itself, no proclamation, no Rosh Chodesh. Until they make the proclamation, it's not Rosh Chodesh. If Beis Din fail to make Rosh Chodesh if they fail to proclaim Rosh Chodesh on time, then the next day is automatically Rosh Chodesh. Okay? Meaning they do not need to proclaim when it is a leap month. When there's 30 days of a month, they don't need to proclaim. And by the way, there's a bit of a dispute on that as well. How many people are in a Beis Din?
60.
Huh? 60. No. How many people are in a Beis Din? You say 72? You say 73? What is this, a guessing game over here, Ruvain?
No, I said 3.
Oh, three. Okay. So, believe it or not, Ruvain is correct. The minimum Beis Din is 3 people. Yes, there was the Sanhedrin of 71 people. That was like the head Beis Din. But not always were they operating properly. Right? Sometimes the Jewish people had a Beis Din, which is 3 people, and those 3 people determined what day of the month it was. Yeah, that's what happened. What happens if 3 people see the moon? Now we have a problem. They are the Beis Din, but they saw the moon. What did we say? If they see the moon, could they determine that it's Rosh Chodesh based on the sight? No. They need witnesses. Now, could they be witnesses? They're not witnesses. You can't be witnesses to themselves. Who witnesses need a Beis Din to cross-examine them. But they are the Beis Din. So what are they going to do? So says the Gemara over here, two of the Beis Din, 2 members of the Beis Din, they should stand up. 2 members of the Beis Din should stand up, and they should actually be the witnesses. The 3rd member of the Beis Din, he is cross-examining the witness. But now you have a problem because you don't have a Beis Din. The Gemara is actually going to say, I'm going to preempt you a little bit. The Gemara is basically going to say what we mean is that the one that saw it could actually include 2 people that didn't see it. They make a Beis Din of 3. And then the 2 of the Beis Din that left, they become the witnesses. The point is, in order to properly establish a Jewish month, you need 2 witnesses, and you need a Beis Din of 3 people that cross-examine in those 2 witnesses. So how many people, what's the minimum amount of people that it requires to establish a new Jewish month? 5 people. Right? That's less people than I have online. What's wrong with that? Only 3. Basically, a person is not believed by himself, meaning even a great rabbi is not believed enough to establish the new month. I'm sorry to tell you that. I'm going to ask you a question, and by the way, anybody online could answer the question too. Which Beth Din today determines when the new Jewish month is? Chabad.org?
Thursday.
Huh?
Oh, do you refer to the Sefer Torah?
Calculated.
Huh?
Do you refer to the Sefer Torah?
So you say, Reuven, we do what in front of the Sefer Torah?
What's the new month? We see exactly the time and when it's going to be. And
Yeah, well, that's not, we don't establish the new month by doing that.
when-
Why? No, we're saying when the new month is going to be. We're stating facts. You're saying about a blessing we make the Shabbat before.
Who does?
We didn't see the moon yet. How can you be a witness if you didn't see the moon yet? So who does it? So who establishes who establishes the Jewish new month today? So Reuven said correctly, no one. Right? There was a time where the rabbis realized that that the Jewish people were being scattered around the world, and it would be impossible to continue this tradition, even though it's biblical. Right? Now, what they did is they basically in advance blessed all the future months based on the calculation we have today. And the calculation we have today is squeaky clean, accurate. You won't even believe how accurate today's calculation is. It's insane how accurate it is. As a matter of fact, today, if you go based on the Jewish calculation, you'll see that the moon is pretty much coming exactly when it looks like it's coming. It is sometimes a little off, but that's because even the calculation admits that it's a little off. It's only an average. It doesn't always come out at the same time.
But do you need two of the same witnesses to see it at the same time?
What?
Do you need two people like standing together to see the moon?
No. They could be two different people, different places.